Yeah, I have certain players in certain areas of the basement. Like I have a bathroom down here, and there's certain players that are, in the bathroom and not on display in the main area.
It's like
Yeah,
they're
I'm
not
petty that
dressing
way.
tonight, so you put them in the
Yeah,
bathroom. I like
I'm
that. All
I'm
right.
petty that way.
That'll be a suspension. That'll be a fine. Nyland going ballistic. He's a freaking madman.
I'm Chris Nyland, and this is the Raw Knuckles Podcast.
All right, we're here at the Raw Knuckles podcast, and to our listeners, Chris is gone, so we're kind of doing a few segments here to hold us over. And we have the Habs Cave on. Sunil, I met you at the golf outing, right? And
That's right.
And that was the first time we met, and I think when I met you, I was kind of not sure at first, and then someone was like Habs Cave, and I was like, oh, Habs Cave, is that like who you're known as? Are you Habs Cave? Is that your name?
I think I'm the one who pushed you and said, "Hey, I'm the Habs Cave guy." And then
You
you're
might
like,
have said
"Oh,
it
you're
yourself,
that
like
guy."
I'm Habs Cave, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
you're that guy. Well, let me start off by saying thanks for having me on as a filler for Chris. It's good that he gets some time off. But yeah, it was great seeing you at the golf tournament. That was quite an event. And yeah, people know me as the Habs Cave guy, aka Sunny. That's actually my name, Sunil. But the Habs Cave thing has caught on pretty well. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm known as.
What?
And the Habs Cave is just an awesome spot where we just kind of get together, watch Habs games, and all my memorabilia is kind of collected into this man cave area. And since Instagram, it's just kind of taken off. It's got a life of its own.
when did you start? When did this start? And then, I guess my question would be, you just mentioned all the memorabilia. Did you have a bunch before you started, or did you just go piece by piece and start this thing?
Yeah, as a kid, I mean, I started off collecting hockey cards like most, young Canadian boys, and it kind of grew into a little bit more as I got older, got my first job at McDonald's, started spending some more money on memorabilia, bigger items. And yeah, I've just been accumulating stuff since I'm a little kid. And I've had a condo. I had a little spot there where I had some stuff on display. My first home was a smaller basement. I call it Habs Cave 1.0. And I just, along the way, just started collecting stuff and accumulating stuff. And I was lucky enough to sort of build a basement in this house. So I built it with the intentions of just having all my stuff on display and having, as many guys down here possible to watch a game. So, it's just stuff I've accumulated over the years. And it's still not all on display. It's impossible to.
Really? There's still
Yeah,
stuff that's not
yeah.
even there. What's
Probably double the stuff that's down here is well, sort of put away.
what was the first piece of memorabilia that you had? Do you remember?
I guess the first piece I got was an 8x10 signed by Patrick Roy, and I got that framed up, put it in my bedroom, and it just kind of grew from there. And as I was a youngster, not too many people had that, actually. None of my friends were sort of collecting memorabilia, more in the hockey cards and stuff, so I kind of veered that way, and it grew into this.
So Patrick Waugh had no idea he was signing the first piece of the Habs Cave.
No, actually, yeah, exactly. He had no idea, and there's a great story. I was 15 years old. I had just won the cup, and there's a store out here called Zeller's, and I waited in line for like 7 hours because he was going to do a signing, and I was the first kid in line, and man, did he treat me well! And he signed a bunch of stuff. We took a bunch of pictures. Actually, 25 years later, he signed that same picture that we took that day. So
Wow.
he actually remembered.
Do you have
he
like
remembered,
current? Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he actually remembered that day when he was, usually, you go to signings and guys are like machines signing like thousands of items. But he stopped at that picture and said, "Hey, I remember that day at that store." So that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I remember my signings. There might have been like two of them. So don't worry. Don't
Come
worry.
on,
I
what?
remember.
You don't have any
remember all of them.
signings in Helsinki or, no, none of
No,
that?
we
Okay.
did. We did. I mean, I'm just messing around. Obviously, now I don't, being in where I live, there's hockey's not even that big, but
Yeah.
it's cool to see. I love it. I think, do you have like current player stuff? Like, are you ever watching a Habs game and someone pisses you off on the team and you take them out of the Habs cave?
Well, I am kind of addictive that way, and guys kind of get a chuckle out of it. But yeah, I have certain players in certain areas of the basement. Like I have a bathroom down here, and there's certain players that are, in the bathroom and not on display in the main area.
It's like they're
I'm
not
petty that
dressing
way.
tonight, so you put them in the
Yeah.
bathroom. I like that.
I'm
All right.
petty that way, so I'm still a child at heart, so yeah, I'll take it out on the players with my memorabilia for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. What do you have like a favorite? What's your favorite memory of the Habs Cave, or like a funny?
But oftentimes, now I have so much memorabilia. That's, there's only so much I can go after at this point. So having guys come down here is really sort of quite an honor for any guy who's got a fan cave or a man cave to have, an actual player come down and see the spot and have a drink. That's really sort of exciting.
Yeah, and he's like, "Why am I in the bathroom? Why am I in the bathroom?" It's like, what did
I'll make sure.
I was +2 yesterday. What do you mean? Why do you got me in the bathroom? No.
Well, I will do a triage. I mean, if I know which guy's coming over, I'll make sure his stuff's on display.
Yeah, you put him like right on the center carpet.
Well, Knuckles, the first time he came over here, he gave me, he put the screws to me because, he came over a few weeks earlier than I had anticipated. So I had ordered a jersey, a vintage CCM jersey to get stitched and signed and have it here, but it wasn't ready. So, he came down here and there wasn't much Knuckles stuff down here. So he put the screws to me for sure. We got that on video too, but, he jokes around. Now he's got a whole wall. As you come down the stairs, he's on the family wall. He's got a whole wall just for Chris Nyland. So I'll hear him once in a while brag about that. So, but yeah, just having players come down here is really sort of the amazing part. I have a section of the wall here that we asked them to autograph as they leave. So we're at about 16 alumni players who've come down here, Habs alumni guys, Hall of Famers, who've come down here, have a drink, and just hang out, which is really, really fun,
Well, going back to when you just mentioned Chris there, tell me about that. How did that start? Because you guys are pretty close. He talks about you a lot, and I know you guys stay connected. And how did that all start?
Well, Chris, I think, basically when, he left the radio, we all know that story, it didn't sit right with me. And as I was following Chris on social media, I saw that he was going to start a podcast and that he was trying to grow his social media. With my page, I already had quite a large following. So I said, how can I help Chris? Maybe I could help him out with this social media stuff. So, I saw a few errors and mistakes every once in a while where they would like double post and whatnot. So I'd just chime in, send a message, not knowing they would answer me back. But, it says Chris is answering you back, but we know it's not really Chris. It's Jamie that's answering you back. So I had sort of struck up a relationship with Jamie that way, going back and forth and sort of reposting whatever Chris was posting. And I happened to, take part in many charitable events in the city. And I finally had an opportunity to be in an event where Knuckles was there. And I didn't really want to bother him. My buddy's like, look, go talk to Chris. You talk to him online all the time anyways. I go, I don't know if that's Chris. I don't know who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
So he kind of nudged me. I said, I approached Chris. He was sitting, of course, at a table up front. I was way in the back. And he was with some bigwigs. And he was on the phone with Jamie, which I didn't know at the time. And I approached the table. I said, hey, Chris, it's Sunny from Habs Cave. And he goes, Sunny from Habs Cave. He grabs the phone, just gives me the phone. And I'm like, okay. And everyone at the table is like, what the hell's going on? Who's this guy? And it's Jamie on the phone. Oh, Jamie, it's nice to talk to you finally. And then he grabs me by the shoulder. He goes, let's get the fuck out of here. And he just grabs me, he brings me to the corner, and then we just start chatting. And, I told him what I was about, and we started talking, and it just grew from there. And I sort of helped him out a little bit on social media, pointing out different things. And it just grew from there. And we kind of struck up a little relationship, and it's been fun. Definitely been fun times.
So being the Habs Cave, like being, that, like, are you ever not wearing Habs gear?
Yeah, it's funny because, growing up, I always had, I was that kid who was like wearing Habs jogging pants, Habs t-shirts, Habs hats. And even through high school, and, I would get teased and bothered all the time. I was, like, start dressing like an adult, but, and, I am a mechanical engineer by trade. I went to school, graduated, became an engineer. But, when I wasn't at work, of course, I was always in my gear, my Habs gear, going to the games and stuff. So it's funny to run into, a lot of people from high school, and then they see all this stuff that's happening, and they're like, we already knew this was going to happen. And of course, I'm always in my Habs gear when I can. I'm either wearing Knuckles gear or, my Habs gear stuff. And they said, look, we knew this was going to happen. It's so perfect. The script is so perfect. So
it really is, though. I love stories like that, and just kind of the way things happen like that, because it's just like you're living your passion, right? Like it's Now, not many people get to do that, and I think that's what's really cool about it. Now, are you aware of any other Habs caves out there, or is there anyone giving you competition?
Yeah, I think because of the reach on social media, we all sort of connect with all other fan cave guys and, other Habs fans. That's basically my following is mostly Habs fans and hockey fans. But, we connect with all kinds of other guys who have man caves and fan caves all over North America, the Green Bay guy, the Bears guy, and we're always sharing ideas and such. And, there are other guys who sort of have Habs caves and, I encourage them. I'm always giving them ideas. They're always sharing stuff with me. Hey, look, I moved this over here. What do you think? And it's great. It's been really great. I don't really see it as competition at this point. It's just a lot of fun, and it's just amazing to connect with other fans who have similar passions. There's just so many guys.
Is your cave like changing? Is it changing often?
Yeah, I'm changing it quite often because right now it's the off season. Even for me, there's an off season, and I got a ping pong table on the other side of the cave, and it's right now it was full of stuff that I've accumulated the last few months. So I got to do a triage, and I'll change it up. A lot of the jerseys that I have up here on display on the walls, I got about 60 jerseys on display, all Habs players. I have another 100 that are not on display. So if I wanted to, and the displays that I have, the plexiglass comes off the front, so I can swap the jerseys whenever I want, so I'll do that. Like the other day we had Pete Mahovlich here. I got like 20 minutes notice. Hey, Pete wants to stop by. So of course I grabbed Pete's jersey, threw it up, put it into the display, and he loved seeing it. I'll often change stuff up, just like a refresher, or, I will get newer memorabilia that I want on display, and it's dynamic. It's constantly changing and growing, and, my wife puts up with most of this nonsense. She's really the hero in this story, not me.
No, that's awesome. I was going to say, aside from Chris, because we can't not put Chris there, but which player's been in the Habs cave where you're like, who is the player that you were just like, oh my God, I can't, like, this guy's in my basement or in my cave?
We've had some Hall of Famers. So Denny Savard was here, which is really cool. He had some great stories. Richer was great. Stefan Richer, last 50 goal scorer. But the first guy that came here was Gilbert Dion, Marcel's brother, and he won the cup in '93. And he was supposed to just stop by for, 10 minutes, and he stayed for like 4 hours.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he's always a riot. So he actually stays over now. So he sleeps over. So anytime he's got an event in Montreal, the kids know, is that Gilbert's room? You're getting it ready. Gilbert must be visiting. And he'll crash. And he's a riot.
You had no idea he was moving in. That's what he's doing.
No idea. Like, you could ask him about it. And, he jokes about it. But it's true. He'll stay over. And he's been great to me. And he's helped me sort of connect with other alumni players and sort of just legitimize me in terms of when I do approach players or do send out a message, they're more willing to sort of connect with me and start a conversation. Again, that's also, my association with Chris helps. Being in with Chris helps certainly because, walking into a conversation with players, they're like, oh, you're Chris's guy, right? Or, the first time I met Sergio Momesso, I remember he goes, Chris is always with you all the time. I'm like, well, that's what social media makes it look like, but really I'm with Chris. And, that helps, just kind of like says, okay, this guy's, not going to be gossiping about everything we're talking about, because there are guys who do that, right? And
but that's kind of really cool. That's a cool sign of like when someone's like, Chris is with you, right? And I know it's a small thing, right? And maybe you're with Chris, but like that's
nuts.
Something to be, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's insane. First of all, it's insane. 8-year-old me is always beside myself when, I try to keep myself in check. I'm pretty good around Chris. But Chris knows that side of me exists, so he once in a while he'll throw out a warning and go, Sunil, enough, with the selfies. I'm the selfies guy. I love to take selfies with the guys, and he's like, Sunil, like, now's not the time, cut it out, he'll throw me that look, and I'm like, okay, sorry, Chris. But because of social media, kids follow social media basically, right? So it's often times where I'll be with older players and they know me and they don't really know the older players. So that's kind of an awkward situation for me. And I'll make the introduction, oh, by the way, this is, He played for the Canadiens and won a Stanley Cup. Yeah, I'm the Habs guy. They're like, can we get a picture with you? I'm like, yeah, we could get a picture, but you should really get a picture with this guy, That happens, but it's, again, my wife I have season tickets to the Habs. She only comes to like one game a season with me. And it's a lot of fun because the guys who follow me tend to be at the Bell Center, and I'm always there. So, yeah, we'll throw out some handshakes, take some pictures with the younger audience, and sometimes they'll want an autograph. And, my wife was totally thrown back the last time we went to a game. She's like, what is this? Why do people want to know you?
I can only
She's
imagine.
Like, this is absolutely insane. And she said, no wonder you love coming here every Saturday night and you want to be here at the Bell. I said, look, it's a lot of fun and I have fun with it. And there's a positive twist to all of this. If you want to get into that, the charity stuff.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so another way Chris and I connected was through charity, basically. Chris's passion for the Liam Foundation is just extraordinary, and how could that not rub off? And it rubbed off on me tremendously. And I threw my sort of hat in the ring and I said, how could I help? So the first event we had down here like 3 years ago was for the Liam Foundation, and I thought to myself, how could I raise some money? I said, I have guys, I get 10, 15 guys down here every Saturday to watch the game anyways, when it's a road game. How can I raise some money with this? So Chris came on board. I said, Chris, how about you join us to watch a game? And I'll get the guys to sort of donate, and I'll get food, brought in. We'll make a night of it. You'll sign some autographs. The guys were great. They all donated like, $150, $200. There was 30, 40 guys down here by the end of it. And, Chris was great, signed autographs, took pictures. We watched the game, and the Liam Foundation went home with like $5-6 grand. So that kind of gave me the taste. And I said, what's next? What other charity can I do? So I also work with the Expos Fest. They work with the Montreal Children's Hospital. So we'll do an event. Now the events have grown. We get like, 50, 60 people down here. I don't have to explain myself to restaurants and local sponsors. We had a food truck down here last time. There's 60 guys. Everything's donated. We have a giant raffle, silent auction. Liam Foundation went home with like, close to $11,000 for just watching a hockey game with the buddies. It's awesome, right? So
that's really
I never
cool.
imagined that this space would turn into that. But I'm always on the hunt, what other local community charities can I help and whatnot. So it's a win-win for everybody. Like it's a win for me because it's just great, warms the heart, and having the players come down here is great. So we try to combine it with different alumni and different charities. And like I said, everybody wins at the end of the day. And I have Chris to thank for that because, he really showed of his passion for giving back. A lot of the stuff doesn't get filmed. I'm with Chris a lot. And, he's like, I don't want this on camera. I don't like, Chris is the type of guy where if somebody sends him a letter like, oh, I love you, I haven't seen you, I'm not well, Chris will go out of the way to go see this person or send a picture or do whatnot. So it's inspiring. It's really rubbed off in a positive way for me anyways.
No, that's a really cool story. I was gonna say like, well, that explains all the pictures at the games at the Bell Center, right? I mean, who doesn't want to take a picture with someone who's doing all those things and the charity things?
Well,
I was gonna say
that.
and I was gonna say from an honest standpoint of your side, like, would you rather watch a game at the Bell Center or like it's got to be awesome to watch a game in the Habs Cave, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm a diehard, so there's nothing beats Saturday night at the Bell Center for me. I mean, I look forward to that all week long. I make sure that every Saturday game I'm there, and there's nothing better. But yes, the second best place, as it's been coined or as it's been said, has been down here to watch a game, and we sort of make the best of it. There's lots of screens down here. There's an air hockey table, pinball machine, pool, foosball, bubble, super checks, arcade, whatever. So it's fun to hear all this stuff in action, when you have the guys down here during intermission. But when the game's on, everybody's focused. We made sure we have, a 90-inch screen back there and, everything's going. So it's fun. It's fun. It's a great place to watch a game, no question.
No, it's probably just a cool place to hang out. That's really cool. I've scored in the Bell Center, by the way. I just started, I had to add that.
When you were with the Thrashers?
No, with Winnipeg. It was it was a broken down Evander Kane. I was playing with Blake Wheeler, Evander Kane, and I was at the right place at the right time. Let's just say that. It was nothing special. We ended up getting blown out like 5-1, but I scored to make it 1-0.
Yeah, I mean that's still pretty amazing. I mean,
No, it was cool. That was
you
a
know,
fun place to play, man. I
yeah.
mean, I couldn't imagine being on the home side of
Yeah,
things.
there's something electric about the environment. The atmosphere is, I've seen games in many different arenas. Every city celebrates it differently, right? But I would say, Montreal it's really about the game. There's no hoopla. There's not a lot of extracurricular activity. It's really about the game, and that's the focus, and that's what I love about being there. As a Habs fan, we take it pretty seriously. And it's a great place to watch a game. And the fans, look, they're knowledgeable fans. We have a great fan base that know a lot about hockey. So you can shoot the shit with anybody, and it's a great conversation.
You can tell. No, that's a good point. You can tell. I'm from Chicago, but playing a hockey game in a Canadian environment, because like in a Hawks game, I always joke around like you're at the red line with the puck and everyone's just like shoot, like no one really knows.
Yeah,
you're right, like they're screaming. And I mean, there is real hockey fans here, but I'm just saying, like in Canada, like the crowd will like kind of like start rising to like a certain as the game's going, as far as like if a guy's wide open, if a play's about to happen, like the crowd knows.
Oh yeah,
so
I mean they know what's
yeah. Yes, it's pretty cool.
To your point, like I said, the fan base is so knowledgeable, and we grew up playing hockey, most of us, so that's what we did around here, and so we know the game. The fans know the game, and they know what's happening. They know what's about to happen. So it's exciting to be in an environment like that, right? We're so sort of passionate. Whether it's a game in the middle of the season or the playoffs, I mean, we take it pretty seriously, and it's fun to be part of that. No question.
No. When I was in Winnipeg, I always one of my joking around, but true stories. I brought I was getting my suits dry cleaned, and the guy there was just like ripping into like our power play and just you need to do this, and I was like,
yeah.
Was this guy? I was literally like, were you just in the meeting? Because this is exactly what we just talked about.
That's it. I mean, you got 20,000
cool.
armchair GMs in the stands, right? Like there's 20,000 coaches, 20,000 GMs yelling at you, at the games, because they've all got an opinion, and they're knowledgeable opinions. I will say that, like we're not sort of just shooting our mouths off and uttering nonsense. We know the game. It's really the only ticket in town nowadays. So there's a lot of focus on the Canadians and what they're doing. But enough about me. Let's talk about you.
We can read.
I always one of the things I like to sort of talk about is my ethnicity, because there aren't really, to be honest with you, there are not really a lot of guys who look like me at the games, to be honest. It's changing. The game's getting more diverse. The fan base is getting more diverse. But, it is still an expensive thing to go to an NHL hockey game, especially, in a city like Montreal. But I do sort of talk about it when, I'm interviewed or sort of, brought into the media attention. I like the fact that, yes, I speak French. I'm born and raised Quebecer, so I speak French, I speak English, I speak a third language. I'm Indian, and I sort of like that fact that I stand out. And I don't know if you know this, but the Canadians did choose me as the first inductee into the Fan Hall of Fame.
No way.
So I do have a banner
awesome.
in the Bell. Yeah. I have a banner on the third floor. With my name on it. And
you're
people
getting more and more important as this interview's going on. I'm just like, who am I
it's
talking
funny because
to? I'm like,
no, it's funny because I'll tell people, hey, meet me on the third floor. I got a banner there. Like, yeah, whatever. And they go up there and go, holy shit, there's a banner with your name on it. I told you there was.
Yeah.
So it was really cool of them to choose me rather than someone else they could have chose. Yeah,
there's a lot of fans. Really, there's a lot out there. I'm
they
sure.
They could have chose some diehard fans, but they could have chose someone who ethnically was just, was a French Quebecer, who was white, who was Anglophone, whatever. I mean, but I like the fact that they chose me. I stand out.
How long ago was this?
This was in 2021. It happened during COVID, basically.
Yeah.
They had a ceremony in the Bell Center. Breezer was there. Dandino was there. They raised the banner at the center ice. There's nobody there because it was during COVID.
Yeah.
But man, they made the best of it. It was quite an event for me, personally, as a fan. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than that.
No, that's insane. Good for you.
But so harping back to my ethnicity and looking different and being a visible minority. I mean, how was it for you? I mean, you're the first Filipino player to play in the NHL.
Yeah.
How did that affect you? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Honestly, for me, to sit here and say, I guess it never really played a role. I think what played more of a role, I mean, today maybe it's more like I didn't even know that was a thing. Like I was the first Filipino until like Jason Robertson and these guys kind of a little bit more and more. And I do take pride in it, but I could say that like that wasn't really a role. It didn't really play an effect in my journey. Like I think the bigger picture for me was just like being 5'7", right? Like it was just like I was too small, and then just climb that ladder. But as far as my background, I mean, my mom, brother, and sister were born in the Philippines. I guess that part of it's kind of crazy as far as like how I even got into hockey. My dad never played. Like we just lived in Chicago. My brother and sister were born. My dad, it's a long story, but my dad's from Michigan. And so my mom was a foreign exchange student. And then they kind of did their thing, had my brother and sister out in the Philippines, and then moved back here back when he was like, they were like 21. So probably 1980, maybe. I was born in 82. And then my dad just started like his brother had a bunch of, his kids playing hockey. Michigan's a big hockey state. Illinois is a huge hockey state now. Okay. But at the time, I mean, you would have thought I was from like New Mexico or like Arizona. You know what I mean? Like hockey wasn't very big. So my dad just was, asked, his brother, my uncle said like, try to get him in skating. Like my son loves skating. And I went to the local rink there just outside Chicago, started skating, fell in love with it. And, my dad's been building little rinks in the backyard every winter for 26 years now. I mean, I couldn't.
But did your dad skate?
No,
he didn't skate.
So, I mean, he got into hockey like as I was getting into it,
sure.
And
but he didn't skate, so
never. No, and he knew not. I mean, he'll admit like he didn't know which way, like how to hold the stick, like which way I should shoot. Yeah. Like this stuff was all kind of just being figured out as we went. But I could tell you today, though, like he's one of the most knowledgeable people I know in the game of hockey. It's pretty
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's just that he knows a lot. And regardless, though, back to being Filipino, I feel like that it didn't become a thing, until just of recent. I think it's pretty cool, to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to hear that it wasn't a thing for you, right? Because
no, it wasn't. I mean,
you're just one of the guys. That's it.
100%. And I never had to climb or break any, so-called barriers on things like that. But I know others have maybe or have felt that way, but for me, it never played a role. It's like I said. I mean, I might get the off joke here and there, like, are you the team masseuse? Whatever.
Yeah.
But like, but that's
can you
fine.
Call your mom? Is your mom a nurse?
Yeah. Like who's the, Chinese guy in the team?
Yeah.
Or who's,
well, I mean, look, looking back at my childhood, my parents came here in I guess 69, and they're just hardworking immigrants. They were just about going to school, get your education, and sports wasn't really a thing they knew about or were involved in. And as a youngster, my dad actually, one of his first jobs was he had a job taking care of the lights in the forum, in the old forum. And he didn't realize, he didn't really care. It was just a job for him. But he knew how much I cared about it. So every once in a while, he'd bring me in when the forum was completely empty with permission. Yeah. And I'd be with him in the mecca of hockey, empty, wow. on the catwalks upstairs, I don't think you do that now with a 10-year-old kid, but he'd bring me up there and I'd be looking down at the ice.
Camera. He'd go to jail.
And I'm like, this was before cell phones and all that stuff, right? So I didn't have, pictures or video or anything. But I mean, I remember being in the building just with my dad in silence, just up there working on lights. Like, it's just nuts.
That is cool. And you just remember that like yesterday, right?
Yeah, again, he didn't care about hockey. He didn't watch hockey. He didn't know about hockey. He didn't know how to skate, nothing. But I played, and he would bring me to the games and, all of that stuff. And he was a good sport for that, But that really is kind of, again, his mentality was as an immigrant, I just got to work, put food on the table, and get my kids educated. So the hockey and sports stuff he didn't really know too much about. But skating was not a thing for him.
My dad was a very athletic person, they were more football and basketball, and hockey just wasn't even an option until, I started skating. And then next, like I said, he's built a rink every year. He builds them for my kid now, his grandson. So it's pretty cool to see. Like it's cool sometimes to be with my dad and my son skating in the backyard in the winter, because it's like these 3 generations, you know,
Yeah.
and it's definitely cool moments to have. But yeah, no, and then
That's awesome. I mean, I'm happy to hear that it didn't really affect you at first. So that's good to you're just like any other guys in the locker room, you know.
Yeah,
and that's what we want.
And it never. And
That's
I can
good.
even like go back and really. I mean, maybe there's things that happened.
Yeah.
Like I said, more on a joking side that wouldn't be acceptable today, like accepted today, maybe. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm all about just rolling with punches, and that never played an issue for me. No.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm totally bilingual. I'm trilingual, actually. You know, people sometimes, you know, right off the bat expect me to speak with an Indian accent, perhaps. I won't do the Indian accent here.
Right?
I don't want to, you know, like, you know, bobble the head a bit or whatever. But they're surprised to hear my non-accent, and even in French. I think I was, you know, one of my best friends growing up. I mean, I had never met his grandmother. She's like this old French Canadian woman who's like, you know, she was, I guess at the time in her like 70s, and she was on the porch, and I went to go, you know, ring the doorbell, play with my buddy, play some street hockey, and she was sitting on the porch. And she goes, "Oh, this is Sunil." She's like, "Oh, I had no idea you were brown." And I think I was like 8 years old. And I was like, that's the first time I ever even understood that I was brown. I was like, I didn't even know until somebody told me. I'm like, oh, okay, I didn't even know, you know. But before that, I was just one of the guys, you know. So it's great to hear that. In terms of like your career, I was looking at, you know, your lengthy career, and you know, you played all over the place. Do you have any like great memories with your family at a certain rink or a certain game, or, you know?
You know what? My parents, it's hard to say, like the biggest memory, I'll try to kind of timeline it here, but like they never met my agent. I had an agent for 14 years. He actually was Billy Zito, who just won the cup in Florida. And even when I was up in the NHL, they never got a chance. You know, we didn't have like where you fly your parents in, or like the dad's trip. Like I didn't have that when I wasn't up or played by any means like a ton of games, but I was up for a couple hundred, and it just didn't happen. And so I think the one time in Chicago, I was I took warm-ups. So like the one time they could see me, but they watched every game on TV, and my dad called me after every game. And I always say to this day, like, I think that was one of the reasons why, like, they always just supported, kind of, you know, they didn't care. Like I remember like one time in college, I mean, like any job or whatever you want to call it, like there's times where it's hard, where like if you're losing a lot, like I'm just like, I don't even want to play hockey. Right. But
it becomes a grind.
And they never put that pressure on me. And I think, you know, I signed 12 one-year contracts out of 14. So like 12 years out of my 14 years, I had no idea what I was doing the following year. And that could be, the unknown can be crazy. And there's a lot of times where maybe I thought, maybe I don't play next year. I don't know. Not saying just because it's human. Like, I mean, that's to think like, you know, you got to look at it both ways. And my parents were never, the fact that they just never put the pressure on me there was never pressure from them. And I just kind of always knew no matter what, like they were going to love me and I'll be supported. I think really played a role in just continuing to just 1 year at a time. And so where I'm going with all this, I think the biggest memory with them is it's an Illinois thing. I'm being in Chicago and Illinois. I was inducted into the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame about 3 years ago. And so kind of similar to you, where like these things as a kid and where you grew up playing and where it started, like I got to circle it all back. And I think for me, that was a huge thing for them, right? Like to be able to, you know, I mean, it's the Illinois Hockey Hall of Fame, but it's still something, it's pretty cool. There's guys like Chris Chelios and guys,
That's
there's
awesome.
some names in there, but it's just,
and Tim Stapleton.
And it's just like to circle it all back. And I think, you know, otherwise, you know, I mean, there's not too many. They love to watch the games at home. Like my dad likes to like go to the bathroom when he wants to go to, you know what I mean? Like he likes to watch, like he likes to hear.
At his convenience. I get it.
And so they were.
So I mean, going back to memories, like what is your most memorable moment in your career? Like what really stands out as, you know, this was sort of like, wow, I can't believe this happened. You have that moment?
Yeah. I did. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a couple.
Other than scoring the last goal in Thrashers history.
Which I didn't know. Just like being the first Filipino, like I didn't know.
There you go.
Until like all of a sudden someone told me. But I would probably say like my first call up and the night before it's kind of not a long story, but I was eating dinner. Like at the time I was playing for the Maple Leafs, the Marlies. I was sent down to training camp, and, I was a kid coming from Europe, and I had some success in Helsinki and ended up in Toronto. And at the time in February of the season, like Maple Leafs were out of the playoffs. Like we were pretty bad. And statistically we're just out. It's when they had I think it was when Brian Burke first came,
Okay.
and was over there. And I remember I was leading the team in goals, assists, everything. And by no means was I someone why am I I should be called up, because there's draft picks and there's guys they invest in, and a lot of guys were getting called up and given a shot, a game or two over me, which is totally understandable. But at this point, I was kind of I think I deserve something, and I was
looking back at it, you played 70 games. I mean, you had a decent season that season, and you scored some goals.
Yeah. No, so I was thinking why wouldn't they're the ones that signed me, right? So I was just kind of why wouldn't they just at least give me a shot? So I was out to dinner this one night with my agent. He was in town, and we were playing the Rangers. I was still with the Marlies, but it's obviously the same city. But I was kind of complaining to him, why am I going to get called up? Joking but complaining, whatever.
Half joking.
And literally, I'll cut to the chase. I got called up at that dinner, and we were watching the Leafs play the Rangers, and you could literally see someone was getting kind of escorted off, John Mitchell, by his teammates. He'd something, I don't know, tweak something. So I got a call that was go home, put a suit on, come back down. You're jumping on with the team, and you're flying to Long Island. We were playing the Islanders the very next day. And they're you're in the lineup. And so here I am at this dinner, kind of jokingly but seriously kind of complaining about how I should be in the NHL. And sure enough, within an hour, I'm going to be in the NHL. So I get down to Toronto, to the the stadium, and I'm arguing with the security guy, because I'm a Maple Leaf, and he's come on, he's no, you're not.
Yeah.
Maybe that's when being Filipino might have hurt me.
But, there you go.
So I was able to obviously, I got in there, and then we won in a shootout. They were coming off the ice. Next day, I play my first NHL game, went to a shootout, and I scored the game winner. So it was kind of and it was a very dramatic way in my head of I scored. I was pretty good shootout percentage in the AHL at the time, and Ron Wilson was just he was Grabovski, Antropov, and then Stapleton. You're going third, and they went first, right? And so this whole back and forth went it was slow motion in my head. So I'm sitting there, and I was hoping it didn't get to me, right? Yeah. Naturally, I was just I hope this doesn't get to me. And sure enough, it's we scored, they missed, we missed, and then it was Okposo was going down, and.
Yeah.
I was man, if this guy misses, I'm going to have a chance to end this thing first game. And sure enough, that's what happened. And
amazing.
That was probably it was almost I'm sure other people have explained it, but you black out almost, right? I come off the ice and I have 75 text messages. And it was really cool. And the stories from my family was really cool. My sister watching it, she had to put her kids to bed, so she paused it, before it went to overtime. And then she got Then my niece got a phone call, and then she could just hear my mom screaming, and my sister's shit, what did I miss?
He scored.
And then, my brother was watching it, and then his cable went out.
Oh, man.
And he was and all of a sudden his buddy was calling him, and screaming, do you see that? My brother's and so you got all these cool stories, but the truth was,
awesome.
I mean, at the end of the day, it was just a surreal, man, I can't believe this is happening. It didn't really hit me till 2 days later, but that was probably one of the biggest moments in my career.
I'd be remiss not to talk about the Olympics. As we're recording this, obviously the Paris Olympics are on board. I mean, how did it feel for you to sort of don, the American jersey and sort of and play for USA? How do you feel about that? What are your memories?
No, that's a great question. I think I forget about that sometimes, because that's definitely one of the biggest things in my career, is being able to do that. And the World Championships, what's cool about it is it's literally, the Olympics are every 4 years. So you're literally, at that time I know a lot of NHL guys are still playing or whatever, but technically you're putting the best, American team you can put out for the biggest tournament outside the Olympics. And to be able to do it, the first time was kind of cool, because it was, but to do it 3 times And then to top it
Wow.
off, like as I was out in Europe playing, they used to have this thing. I don't know if they have it anymore, but it's called the Deutschland Cup, and they have like
Okay.
an American team. Same thing. You wear the
Okay.
I mean, you're basically
Yeah.
the U.S. team, but they only take guys from that are playing out in Europe. And I played in that thing 4 times.
Wow.
So I got to put that jersey on like 7 times, and I could tell you every single time I put it on was just more and more of a moment of just like, man, this is to put something on like your country, like it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. It's pretty cool. And I got we won a bronze medal, which other than that I didn't really win much in my career. Surrounded by losers all my career. That's how I always say that. But no, we got a bronze medal, and that's something I have, in a plaque or whatever you want to call it. Why am I drawing a blank? Right, that jerseys are those are cases. I have it like in a case,
in a case.
and it's kind of a cool memory. And the jersey signed by the whole team. And
That's awesome. So do you keep any, like, talking about memorabilia? I mean, I have a ton. You've seen it. It's online. What about you? Do you keep anything? Do you have anything on display or?
No, everything's kind of just in my closet.
Okay.
And maybe down the road. I mean, we're renting a house right now, so maybe like when we get a new house that we eventually, like I might put everything up, but I like to give it to my dad. Likes to have it.
That's awesome.
But eventually, there's a lot of stuff from my career. As far as like as a fan, I played with Chris Chelios, so I got a signed jersey by him.
Nice.
Steve Yzerman was my idol.
Okay.
And that's a funny story because he was the GM in Grand Rapids this one year.
Okay.
And when I was playing with the Chicago Wolves, we played them. And
so was he your favorite all-time player?
All time.
Steve Yzerman?
Yeah.
Stevie
So we got off and we're going on the bus. This is in the minors. And as I was like running to the bus, I was kind of late. I saw him. I got on the bus and then I saw him.
Yeah.
So I told the bus to stop, and I ran and pulled my stick out from underneath, and I ran to him, and I'm like, Mr. Yzerman, and he knew. He was like, "Didn't you just play?"
Yeah,
and I was like
sweating.
And that was a moment for me where I'm like, and he was just like, "Didn't you?" He was like kind of confused, and I'm like, "You were my idol growing up."
Well, you took your shot. Good for you. I mean, a lot of guys would just sort of let it go.
And then the only other thing, like even playing, I know players out there have gotten a lot of sticks, like they're playing against somebody that might be like Crosby, Sidney, can I get a stick?
Yeah, and soccer, they'll swap jerseys or whatever.
Yeah, I kind of wish I would have done that more.
Yeah.
But for me, I did do it twice. I did Pavel Datsyuk when I played because he was my next favorite after like Yzerman retired.
Okay.
And he signed me a stick, and then
nice.
I think I got.
So you have all that stuff. Then you have it all.
I have it all.
When you set up
hey, if you're asking,
I'll help you with that.
No one's buying it. If that's what you're asking, there's no one buying it.
It's for yourself. Well, that's good. It's good to hear. I mean, like again, some guys just get rid of it all. Get rid of all of it. I have the opportunity to talk to different players of different generations. Most of them can care less about it. They'll ask their kids, they're like, "Hey, you want this stuff?" Or they don't mind actually getting rid of it to somebody like me who's gonna like look after it, take care of it, and display it. Because a lot of times they'll just have stuff in the attic in a box, and they're like, they don't care about it. So they're like, hey, if I can get rid of this, and you.
No, it's a great point because I could say that I have been that guy where I'm like, I don't really care, but I do have it. So like now, kind of like as time goes on, I really appreciate having it.
Yeah, I mean, displaying it, setting it up in a frame, it really becomes. People ask me all the time, but guys, I'm 46 years old, and I'm not buying a painting for $10,000. But you know what? A lot of guys are buying a Michael Jordan jersey and getting it framed for like 20 and putting it up on their wall because once it is framed and it's displayed nicely, it really does become like a piece of art, really. And that's what guys are buying nowadays. They're not really buying this old school art, whatever. They're buying sports memorabilia. It's big. It's such a big business now. When I started collecting, I remember the first jersey I got was a Patrick Roy game worn jersey from the 2001 Stanley Cup final. And it was a big deal for me. And it's a huge jersey because it's a goalie cut, right? It's massive and it's baggy. So, it's a size 60 goalie cut. It's huge. And so I went to the framing shop and I said, I'd love to put this in a frame and put it on my wall. The guy looked at me like I was from another planet. He's like, what do you mean you want to put a shirt in a frame? This is like 2001. And I said, well, look, I want to put it in a frame and hang it on my wall to display. He goes, nobody does that. I don't know what you're talking about. I said, look, just make me the frame and I'll put it in myself. And he says, this is wacko. He says, I'll do it for you, but I don't know what you're doing. And now look, it's just become this crazy business now. I couldn't believe it. But
what's your, if you, I'll ask this question. If you were to, hopefully it never happens, but if for some reason, just to say hypothetically, you need money, cash, ASAP, like what's the number one thing you're selling in there?
Well, I've never bought, okay, that's not true. I've bought items for transactional reasons. I won't name the goalie, but the goalie never won a Stanley Cup in Montreal. Very famous goal.
I could probably put that together.
I've bought a lot of his stuff, and I've bought and sold it because I know that
there's 2 goalies that I can think of in the history of Montreal.
There's a lot of fans. He has a lot of fans. I'm not, again, the bar is pretty high for me. So I grew up in that generation. But, I have bought and sold a few items like that. But if I had to sell something right now, like to sort of, become liquid as soon as possible, I guess I have, a lot of Patrick Roy game use equipment. So all of that sells pretty quick. There's a lot of Patrick Roy fans. I have over 20 game use sticks of his. I have a full set of equipment that he used in 1990 that was in the Gatorade commercial. They cut Michael Jordan into that Gatorade commercial. So that's a funny story because it was a lockout year that year. And he had given a full set, like pads, blocker glove, goalie stick to his neighbor when he lived here in Montreal as a gift. And what happened was they needed to film the Gatorade commercial, and there was a lockout. He couldn't get any access to any of his equipment. So he had to ask his neighbor, hey, do you mind if I take it back? Because I need to film the commercial. So he took it back, filmed the commercial. And then what happened is the season came back, abbreviated season. He ended up wearing it for the rest of the season and for the All-Star game and gave it back to Metzger. But now it's here in my basement on a mannequin. The kids love to joke about these mannequins, by the way. I have these life-size mannequins with equipment, Patrick Roy's equipment, Ken Dryden's equipment. The kids love to joke that Daddy's downstairs playing with his life-size dolls. They don't like to be here alone in the dark because it freaks them out, these mannequins, especially the Dryden one.
Yeah.
But, that's probably what I'd sell right away. That stuff would sell right away. And, I could make a few bucks, but I'd rather not do it ever.
No, I know. That's the value of your Habs Cave. It's nothing's for sale, right? So it's cool. Yeah, I mean,
So I was looking again. I was like going back to your career. You had a very long career. You played all over the place. You must have some. I couldn't imagine. The stories you have, obviously playing in all those different countries. But when you left the game, like now you're on this podcast with Chris. Like, how did you adjust to that? Like, how did this happen? How did you end up on this podcast with Chris? And where did your life take you after hockey? I know it's taking you here with in the Raw Knuckles podcast.
You know what? It's kind of like if I were to redo that whole. Once I was done playing, I probably what I did was kind of not do anything, and I was grateful and lucky enough to I guess do that where I golfed and just hung out. And, but I was still like, I would say even today, I'm still kind of figuring that out, but things are, I have things going on. I met Chris just through the hockey world after at a certain point. The funny thing with Chris is like, when we met, like that's the second time I've ever met him in person.
Yeah, he told me that. He's like, he's only met you one other time. Yeah.
That's the craziest thing about all of it is how things work today is like, even when I first met him in Pittsburgh about a year ago or something, he looked at me like we kind of came out at the elevator at the same time or different, and he's just like, "You're way bigger than I thought." And I'm like, like what? I'm like, all right, I didn't even know what to say to him, but no, he's just like the hockey, because the one thing that's awesome about the hockey world is like that family. Like I think that's the one thing you get, and I've been more and more grateful for that as far as like my life going on is just you walk away with that family kind of that connection and you can always stay in touch and I met through Chris through that, and then he at the time was just we kind of were just Barry the producer, I played with his son on one of the USA teams and there was just a connection where like Chris had that situation with the radio and then he was going to start a podcast and then he just like asked me and the producer, I didn't know him, but like we had this one meeting and we just tried it and we just haven't stopped. And so, at times I would say from the first time we started till now, I definitely think it's gotten a lot better, and I think it's improving. And for me personally, I think it's improving. Like I can honestly say at first I still don't get comfortable like with it sometimes. It's just not, my most natural thing is to want people to hear what I have to say, I guess. Right. So I just kind of try to piggyback and just kind of feed off of Chris, but doing this right now is awesome. Like this is definitely something I think a year ago I would have not really be comfortable at all doing. I don't know how I'm doing, but regardless, it's been a great interview or conversation or whatever we're doing. And I think that's the best part about it is it's something that you can continuously get better at. And Chris helps. And that's how
I think it becomes part of your legacy too, right?
Yeah.
Like you left the game, but I mean, this is another way of contributing as well into the hockey world. So it just becomes another part of your legacy, basically, that you're on a podcast, right? But
sure.
Going back to that, when Chris said you're big, you look bigger than what I thought. What always strikes me with Chris is when he's with all the other guys, all his other former teammates. It's amazing how he's kind of the smallest guy in the bunch, and that he was the one defending all these big guys. It always astonishes me, and it still sort of strikes me that he's the smallest guy in the crowd, and he's protecting all you guys. No,
I agree.
It's amazing.
It's like that. It's like the scariest thing about him, is in a very positive way is like his loyalty, right? Like it's
unreal.
almost like, this guy, you have to kill this guy. Basically, he's going to fight to the death. But especially if he's trying to represent something that he believes in, you could tell that that's where it gets like there's nothing. I mean, I guess my own personal experience with Chris is like with this podcast is every single guest, and a lot of it happens after the recording. We might talk for 10 minutes, but every single one from Chris Chelios to Larry Roberts to all these Hall of Famers to current, the ones that played with him are always just like he was the best teammate. And I always will hear that and just like, man, that's the one thing I think is most valuable about him is just what these other teammates say about him. It's
the biggest
like
compliment, right? You can get
ultimate teammate, So it's definitely a blessing to have crossed paths with him, and hopefully we continue this thing and it keeps climbing that ladder of succeeding, I guess.
So I will go back to the golf tournament because that's when I met you. So you were late. I don't know what you did the night before.
We got in late.
Yeah,
we got in late. No, I'm serious. I got stuck at the.
And Chelios happened to be late as well.
She was with me. We were together
at the same time.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Believe it or not, we got delayed like almost 6 hours in Chicago, and it was good to catch up with him because like I said, I was teammates with him, and
that's cool.
We got in at like 1 a.m. So
I'll take your word for it. But
there was no.
I'll take your word for it. Yeah, sure. But look, it was great getting chatting with you.
You too.
Thank you so much for having me on.